Jim, where do we start? I mean, the last 3 weeks in the banking sector has been hard to fathom. You and I spent decades in the banking sector. I was talking to our good friend Robert Kiyosaki last week, and he said, Brian, they're centralizing banking. What is your read on Silicon Valley Bank, Credit Suisse, Republic Bank, Deutsche Bank, everything we've seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Well, first of all, it's a good capsule summary, Brian. But of course, the Silicon Valley Bank was taken over by the regulators on March 10th. But you can see it coming. It was in distress. There was $40 billion pulled out of that bank in one day on Thursday, March 9th, the day before it was taken over. $40 billion just hit the road, just left. It was a complete collapse. And I was having a discussion with my editor, my managing editor of one of our publications, Strategic Intelligence. And we had, you work a little bit in advance, and I planned to write something for our April issue on climate change. It's a big subject, and I had outlined it. And he said, Jim, we got to do this banking crisis. I said, of course, let's put climate change down the road. We'll work on the banking crisis. So I started researching and writing on Silicon Valley Bank. And then I'll get into more detail, but 2 days later, they took over Signature Bank. So, well, we got two banks now. We got to, zero in on this. There was a crypto connection, a Signature. We'll talk more about that. And then the next day, First Republic hanging by a thread. It's still hanging by a thread, by the way. Again, we'll go over all this in more detail. And so I couldn't write fast enough because as I'm writing, the story is unfolding. And then you get all the corruption, insiders selling stock before the crash. Mary Daly, the chief regulator, president of the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, she's running around doing LMNOP plus and pride flag and all this stuff. Fine, that's, it's a free country. You can do that if you like, but she wasn't running the bank and she knows nothing about risk management. She's a labor economist, protege of Janet Yellen, came up the ranks, but knows nothing about risk management or actually running a bank. So it just got worse. And then here comes Credit Suisse, right? The one thing I know, maybe a little before your time, Brian, but there was a very, very popular rock celebrity writer in the 1960s named Marianne Faithfull. She had a great career, lots of hits, Mick Jagger's girlfriend, etc. But her summary of the 60s, she said, if I wasn't there, it didn't happen. And I thought that was a very, very good way to put it. In her case, that was true. But I started to feel that way about financial crises. If I wasn't there, it didn't happen. I go back to the Herstatt Bank collapse in 1974, which was a shock. That was back before that was a foreign exchange crisis, but it highlighted the fact that when European banks closed and the U.S. banks were just opening, if you had a failure here, it never settled over here. It wasn't real-time settlement, so there was just all these open positions of a bank that had just failed. The S&O crisis in the 1980s, the Latin American debt crisis, the early to mid 1980s. The flash crash in 1987, the Mexican tequila crisis, 1994, long-term capital, Russia, 1998. Of course, I negotiated that bailout dot-com crash, 2007 mortgages, 2008, everything falls apart, 2020, COVID, and now today. So I don't know if I'm a magnet for trouble, but I've seen my share of financial crises. And as an analyst, they have certain things in common. The entities are always different, the currencies are always different, but the dynamics are very much the same. And the one thing I can say to our viewers is that this is not over. There's been a little bit of a sigh of relief. Stock market rallied a little bit toward the end of beginning of April. And okay, that's a normal reaction. But any thought that the problem's been solved, the bailout's complete, you're not going to hear more, is just not true. There's more coming. Get ready for it. I can't tell you. I'm not going to, pick a specific name, and we all know the names of the big banks that might be in distress. Is Deutsche Bank or Barclays or HSBC, Santander. I'm not picking on any of them. I'm just saying that there are more dominoes waiting to fall. The really interesting part about this, and again, we can come back to the specifics, is that the dominoes falling is a good metaphor. It's, if you got 100 dominoes, you knock the first one, they're all going to fall. That's just physics. So how do you stop that? How do you stop that crisis? Well, you truncate, you drop a steel wall between two dominoes, and this one hits the wall and this one's still standing. But that's the bailout. But the problem is each crisis tends to get bigger than the one before, which means each bailout gets bigger than the one before. My question that I'm wrestling with, are we now at the point where the needed bailout is bigger than the capacity of the central banks, that they've pulled all the rabbits out of a hat, played all their cards? And again, this goes back to what I did say about the Silicon Valley Bank rescue. It is the biggest bailout in history, and I can explain why. But if that's the case, what else do they have? And then, so now we're dangerously close to the point where as the crisis gets worse, it's no longer, oh, gee, let's wait for the Fed to bail it out, or let's wait for the ECB to bail it out. You get to the point, I think we're there, where you say, no, these guys actually can't stop it. And you lose confidence in the currency itself. It's the dollar. The crisis is the dollar itself, and the euro, goes along with that. And then that's the crisis. And there's no way to bail out a dollar crisis with dollars, because you're just pumping more of what people have lost confidence in. And then, then where do you go? And there are good answers to that. We've seen it again. We've seen it all before, but you have to kind of take the timeline out to 1,000 years, or the 1350s with the failure of the Bardi and Peruzzi banks in Florence, to see how these things can really play out. So this is big. It's not over. The regulators will attempt more bailouts, but we're at the point where I think you can start to question the regulators themselves.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.